After spending 2 weeks inspecting another ranch property, I finally drove back toward my family's private reservoir. That lake had supplied water to our ranch for decades and represented years of careful planning. I expected a peaceful afternoon, but something looked very wrong from the top of the hill. As I reached the overlook, my stomach dropped. The shoreline had receded hundreds of feet, exposing cracked mud where deep water should have been. Large industrial pumps were running nonstop near the dam. Standing beside the equipment was HOA President Karen Mitchell, confidently directing workers as water poured through the discharge pipes. She smiled as though she believed everything happening was completely legal. The scene felt impossible to believe. I walked directly toward the pumps and demanded to know why my reservoir was being emptied. Karen immediately held up a county water use permit, insisting she had official approval. She seemed completely certain she was right. Instead of arguing, I quietly opened a folder I always kept inside my truck. Inside were the original deed, survey maps, and reservoir ownership records recorded decades earlier. Karen had no idea what those papers would reveal. I stepped closer to the pumps and asked one simple question. Who gave you permission to drain my reservoir? Karen proudly waved her permit and claimed the HOA had every legal right to use the water. The contractors kept working, unaware they were standing on private property. I examined the permit carefully without saying a word. Within seconds, I noticed the legal property description didn't match my reservoir at all. Karen's confidence only made the mistake more obvious. I showed the survey map to the lead contractor and pointed directly at the recorded property boundaries. His expression immediately changed as he realized the pumps were operating on private land. The crew stopped smiling. The contractor immediately ordered every worker to pause the operation until ownership could be verified. One by one, the loud diesel engines shut down. The sudden silence felt heavier than the sound of the machines. Minutes later, sheriff deputies arrived after the contractor requested official verification. They began photographing the equipment paperwork and reservoir conditions before anyone touched another machine. Every detail was carefully documented. County surveyors arrived carrying GPS equipment and official boundary records. They located the original survey markers, exactly where my deed said they would be. Ownership was becoming impossible to dispute. Environmental specialists inspected the shoreline and measured how much water had already been removed. They recorded every observation with professional equipment. Their report would later become critical evidence. Back at my attorney's office, we organized decades of ownership records, engineering drawings, and maintenance reports. Every document confirmed the reservoir belonged to my family trust. The evidence was overwhelming. Hydraulic engineers calculated the total volume of water removed and estimated the cost of restoring the reservoir. Every figure was supported by scientific measurements. The damage was far greater than anyone expected. Karen insisted she had acted in good faith, believing the permit covered the reservoir. County officials carefully compared every legal document without interruption. Facts mattered more than assumptions. After confirming ownership, restoration crews began preparing the reservoir for safe refilling. Engineers monitored every valve, pipeline, and water level throughout the process. Recovery officially began. Neighbors gathered along the overlook as the reservoir slowly began filling again. Many admitted they had assumed the HOA owned the lake. The official records surprised nearly everyone. County investigators completed their independent review of the property boundaries and reservoir permits. Every conclusion matched the original survey completed decades earlier. Ownership had never changed. The completed investigation included engineering reports, environmental assessments, contractor statements, and official survey records. Together, they created a complete picture of everything that had happened. Preparation had preserved every important fact. As fresh water slowly returned to the reservoir, I stood quietly overlooking the shoreline. The lake represented far more than property. It carried generations of family history and responsibility. Watching it recover reminded me why good records always matter. Jack requested every historic document connected to the reservoir. The county clerk uncovered deeds dating back decades. Each record pointed to the same legal owner. The reservoir had always belonged to Jack's family. Licensed surveyors carefully checked every property marker. Modern GPS measurements matched the original deeds perfectly. The HOA's claim boundary was completely incorrect. Facts were beginning to replace assumptions. Karen realized the survey wasn't supporting her claims. Every new marker strengthened Jack's position. The gathered residents noticed their confidence fading. Questions quickly replaced accusations. Environmental inspectors documented the water removal equipment. They carefully recorded every observation on site. Jack answered every question with complete transparency. The official investigation continued. Jack's attorney organized every important document. Ownership records, permits, and maintenance files matched perfectly. Nothing had been hidden. Everything was properly documented. The HOA board called an emergency meeting. Members reviewed the growing legal situation. Several directors questioned earlier decisions. The mood inside the room changed quickly. A mediator encouraged both sides to discuss solutions. Jack remained calm throughout the meeting. The HOA listened more carefully than before. Constructive conversations finally began. The court carefully reviewed every document presented. Survey maps confirmed the property's legal history. The evidence remained clear and consistent. The hearing moved toward a final decision. The judge announced the court's final ruling. Ownership rights were officially confirmed. The decision relied entirely on documented evidence. The long dispute finally reached its conclusion. Work immediately began restoring the reservoir. Professional crews followed approved engineering plans. Water levels gradually returned to normal. The property started recovering. The reservoir became peaceful once again. Jack enjoyed the quiet evening beside the water.